Gentlemen and doctors, this is the first opportunity I have had to thank the Postgraduate for the honorary membership conferred upon me 2 years ago. A distinction which is a real distinction and which I prize as highly as anyone could. I am glad to be among my own kind tonight. I was once a sharpshooter, but now I practice a much higher and equally as deadly a profession. It wasn't so very long ago that I became a member of your cult, and for the time I've been in the business, my record is one that can't be scoffed at. As to the burglars, I am perfectly familiar with these people. I have always had a good deal to do with burglars. Not officially, but through their attentions to me. I never suffered anything at the hands of a burglar. They have invaded my house time and time again. They never got anything. Then those people who burglarized our house in September, we got back the plated ware they took off. We jailed them, and I have been sorry ever since. They did us a great service. They scared off all the servants in the place. I consider the Children's Theater, of which I am president, and the Postgraduate Medical School as the two greatest institutions in the country. This school, in bringing its 20,000 physicians from all parts of the country, bringing them up to date, and sending them back with renewed confidence, has surely saved hundreds of thousands of lives, which otherwise would have been lost. When the distinction of an honorary membership in the postgraduate college was conferred upon me, I felt it my duty to put aside other matters for a time and qualify myself for the position before beginning to practice. I have been practicing now for 7 months. When I settled on my farm in Connecticut in June, I found the community very thinly settled, and since I have been engaged in practice, it has become more thinly settled still. This gratifies me as indicating that I am making an impression on my community. I suppose it is the same with all of you. I beg you to allow me to read a paper which I have prepared for your instruction, a very short one. I am only a country doctor out on a farm in Connecticut, but I suppose you are similarly situated around over the United States out in the back settlements. The paper which I am now to read to you is entitled, "On the 3 Great Laws to be Observed in the Treatment of Bright's Disease of the Kidneys." First, the first great law to be observed when professionally approaching the patient whom an all-wise Providence has deemed it necessary to inflict with that always serious and often fatal. You know you can't carry on a great work competently without organization. So as soon as I had taken up my residence last June in the house I had built on the high hill overlooking the distant farms and the deep solitudes, I started a branch of the Postgraduate and paid my alma mater the deserved compliment of naming it for her, the Redding, Connecticut branch of the New York Postgraduate College of Medicine. Of course, the practice of medicine and surgery in a remote country district has its disadvantages, but in my case I am happy in a division of responsibility. I practice in conjunction with a horse doctor, a sexton, and an undertaker. The combination is airtight, and Once a man is stricken in our district, escape is impossible for him. These 4 of us, 3 in the regular profession and the 4th an undertaker, are all good men. There is Bill Ferguson, the Redding undertaker. Bill is there in every respect. He is self-made and self-educated. He intends to go on with his education by and by, but at present he still signs his name with a rubber stamp. Like my old Southern friend, he is one of the finest planters anywhere. Then there is Jim Ruggles, the horse doctor. Ruggles is one of the best men I have got. He is not well up in medicine as yet, but he is an elegant horse doctor, one of the very best, I think. Ferguson doesn't make any money out of him. You see, the combination started this way. When I got up to Redding and had become a doctor, I looked around to see what my chances were for aiding in the great work. First thing I did was to determine what manner of doctor I was to be. Being a Connecticut farmer, I naturally consulted my pharmacopoeia and at once decided to become a pharmacopath. Then I got circulating about and got in touch with Ferguson and Ruggles. Ferguson joined readily in my ideas, but Ruggles kept saying that while it was all right for an undertaker to get aboard, he couldn't see where it helped horses. Where was I? Oh, yes. Well, as I was saying, the first great law to be observed when professionally approaching a patient whom an all-wise Providence, we've had some funny experiences up there in Redding. Not long ago, a fellow came along with a rolling gait and a distressed face. We asked him what was the matter. We always hold consultations on every case, as there isn't business enough for 4. He said he didn't know, but that he was a sailor, and perhaps that might help to give a diagnosis. We treated him for that, and I never saw a man die more peacefully. Danbury has the farm next to mine, and is a man of a jealous and sarcastic spirit, and ridicules our college and does everything he can to break up our practice. When we tried to raise money to build a hospital, he said we didn't need a hospital. What we wanted was a cemetery. Everybody else is respectful and calls our institution the Postgraduate, but he calls it the Postmortem. When we've been holding a consultation in a sick room, he doesn't call it that. He calls it preliminary inquest. Well, anyway, his Connecticut farm is a pretty poor one compared to mine, and he is bitterly jealous because he can't raise as many rocks on it as I can. Oh, well, let him talk if it does him good. I know one thing. We've improved things ever so much up there. When we started in 7 months ago, there were lots and lots of sick people. There aren't any now. We are admired and looked up to, and I may even say revered, by everybody but that man, that Danbury. They scatter flowers before us, but he never does. And they call us the Big Four, but he calls us the Four Flush. Often I have wanted to say, damn such a man, but I never would. It would distress my parents, if I had some. The first great law to be observed when professionally approaching. Of course, we make mistakes in diagnosis. Everybody does, especially beginners. Yes, a mistake now and then in diagnosis is unavoidable, no matter how careful you are. Now, there was the instance where the horse doctor came and said he had hunted down a case of vermifuge appendix. He had a good dog, and we have to use dogs now because the inhabitants have become diffident and shy, and when a person gets sick they conceal it and hush it up. So we went there to hold a consultation. and went through the usual flummery, same as you do when you are at home. No occasion for it, nothing in it, but it impresses the family and the patient. Hold out your tongue. Good deal coated. Fetch me some sandpaper. Let me feel your pulse. 94 above normal. Indications of approaching fever. Stick this thing under your tongue. Temperature 117 in the shade. Fever liable to supervene at any moment. And so on and so on. The same old usual thing, that you are so familiar with in your own practice. We all did that, and then thumped the patient on back and front and mashed our ears against his breast and listened to his works. Then we consulted. I voted with the horse doctor for appendicitis and dead against the obstetrician, who said with decision and urgently, "Gents, this ain't no appendicitis. There's something the matter with this feller's umbilical cord." He used to be before the mass, before he came with us, and he wanted to get it out and take a reef in it and tauten it up. The undertaker wouldn't give an opinion. I reckon you've all noticed yourselves that in consultations you never can get the undertaker to show his hand when there's a disagreement. So there was a majority for the appendix, for the employment of the cesarean operation to get it out. Well, after considerable rummaging around, we got it out, but it turned out to be a lung. This wouldn't have made so much difference ordinarily, but it did this time, because this was the only one he had. His appendix was dangling in a bottle in the parlor, but we didn't know it. A fine man. He was a great loss. Just an ideal patient. Always ailing. Thought he was, anyway. Always paid up promptly. Never looked at the bill. Often he would pay the same old bill 4 times and never say a word. Same as if it was a gas bill and he couldn't help himself. Yes, a fine man, and a great loss. But he is gone from us never to return, and we shall have to live within our means now. The 3 great laws to be observed, especially and particularly in the first stage of Bright's disease of the kidneys. In our practice, we mainly adhere to the ancient and time-proven systems of those princes of the medical arts, Galen and Hippocrates and Euripides and Cantharides and Deuteronomy and those others. We believe and bleed in a patient as long as Danbury, that rotten Danbury says, but never mind that. In my opinion, Danbury is a man whose statements are based solely on malignity and jealousy and a wanton desire to injure and even destroy the red and branch of this great and noble institution, the Postgraduate College of New York. And I, for one, am above repeating anything he says or in any other way taking notice of him. Why, once he said, and it was only a week ago, he was talking about our branch to another infidel, and he said, "Oh, yes, the post-mortem's all right, now that it's prosperous and has got a move on." Got a move on, that's just in his line, slang is. Now that it's prosperous and got a move on, they've set up a coat of arms. Device, Hunyadi label. Motto, constipation is the thief of time. Now that is just a plain straight-out lie. That's all it is. It is true that we've got a coat of arms, but it's not a Hunyadi label. It is a facsimile of the seal of our great original here, and the motto on it sheds luster upon both our great original and its red-in branch, to wit, we are sternly opposed to adulterated drugs. We are sternly opposed to all forms of adultery, except those which custom has addicted us to. The first great law to be observed when professionally approaching the patient whom in all wise providence has deemed it necessary to afflict with that always serious and often fatal malady, Bright's disease of the kidneys. But it is too late to read it now. I will take it to your homes and read it to you there.